let's start with partnership today. We'll try and finish as much as possible. In case we are unable to finish it, we'll have a last lecture tomorrow where we'll be discussing. I think we'll need the lecture tomorrow. So where we'll be discussing the what do you call? I think the Negotiable Instruments Act will remain pending. And along with the Negotiable Instrument Act, we can also do the paper pattern, I think, which we have already discussed once in class. So we can just take that up tomorrow again. And any other questions that you guys have. So that is the plan. Now, starting with the partnership. What is partnership? Partnership is basically an agreement which is entered into between two or more people for the purpose of sharing profits. And there is mutual agency that is present. The most important thing for a partnership to come into existence, apart from profit sharing and agreement, is basically the mutual agency part. So mutual agency is something that is the requisite for a partnership, which is not there in any other form of organization. Now, what is mutual agency? Mutual agency is basically when you say that if I, as a partner, am doing something, I am responsible for my acts. But if you are my partner, you are also responsible for my acts. And that is why the liability here becomes unlimited, which means that you will be responsible not only for the share of profit or the share or the capital contribution that you have given, but you'll also be responsible beyond that, which means that if the partnership's liability exceeds, or if my liability as a partner exceeds, you will be responsible and you will also be required to pay out of your personal assets. And hence we say that partnership is something which has unlimited liability. Now we'll compare it with LLP and company so that we are doing all of that together. So what happens that in partnership, the liability is unlimited. In a company form of organization, the liability is limited. So that is something that is the advantageous feature of a company, because it's a separate legal entity and it has its own individual existence. That is why the liability there is limited as compared to a partnership, and it is advantageous. But the disadvantage as compared to partnership for a company form of organization is that the compliances in company form of organization are much higher. So when I talk about partnership, if I have to form a partnership, what do I have to do? To the registrar of firms, I just have to give a form along with the details of the partners, the address where we will be carrying out the business, and I'll have to sign and pay the fees and give the statement to the partnership, the registrar of partnership. Now, in case of companies, there's a long list of compliance that we do. Just come to the Companies Act so that we can see it there. So in case of companies, it is not here. Just 1 second, please. Okay, we don't have it here, no problem. We'll study it from somewhere. So in case of companies, what happens is that in case of company, we have to do a lot of compliances. In the sense, what do we do? First, we have the name reservation. Once we do the name reservation, we get the name, and that name is available to us for a period of around 20 days. In that 20 days period, we have to file other details like details of directors, the memorandum of association, articles of association, a declaration from the directors, consent from directors, a declaration stating that they have not been convicted of any offense or they have not been involved in any fraud. So all those declarations we'll have to give. So the compliances that you have to do there as compared to a partnership is much higher, and hence it involves more cost. It takes a lot of time to register. Partnership, on the other hand, is something where you need not necessarily register. There's an option where you can not register your partnership. And in that case, what happens is that the partnership will be called as an unregistered partnership. What are the consequences of non-registration of partnership? There are 4 consequences, correct? One is that you cannot sue as a partnership firm, you cannot sue the outsider, but the outsider can sue you. You can not claim set off more than rupees 100. And in case of partnership, you can sue each other. So in case of dissolution of partnership, you can sue the partners, but otherwise you cannot sue the partners. So that is the disadvantage that you have in case of partnership firm, but still there is an option wherein you can not register your partnership firm and have an unregistered partnership firm. However, in case of company, you don't have that option. In case of companies, you have to have a registration with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. You cannot form a company without the registration with Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So there was a need to have partnership form of organization and company. So both are very extreme. So there was a need to have something which is in middle, which gives you the flexibility of partnership, also gives you the limited liability feature of a company. It has less compliances like you have in partnership, but it is also something that is registered and governed by MCA. So there's a like a government body which is looking into it. So it has more authenticity as compared to a partnership form. So that is why the limited liability partnership was introduced in 2008. So limited liability partnership is nothing but the mix of both your partnership firm and your company form of organization, and hence it offers you perpetual succession, separate legal entity, artificial person. It gives you the flexibility of having just a LLP agreement similar to how you have your partnership agreement, and only give the capital contribution. The compliances are less. In case of companies, there is a lot of compliances. There are around 470 sections. All of them are about compliances, which we study next year. But in case of in case of LLP, there are only two forms that I have to give. One is your statement of accounts and solvency, and another is your annual return. So apart from these two forms, there are no other compliances that I have to do during the year. So the list of requirements, the compliances, the incorporation process is simpler. The winding up process is simpler. If I want to wind up partnership, it is the most simple. I can just wind it up and inform the registrar of partnership. In case of LLP, it is comparatively simpler, like as compared to a company form of organization, but a little more complicated as compared to partnership. And in case of your company form of organization, winding up takes a hell lot of time, and a lot of people are involved when you're doing winding up of your company. So it's a more time consuming, cost involving organization. But there is an advantage in a company form of organization, is that if someone wants to invest in your company, or a foreign investor wants to invest in your company, then in that case, they will have that authenticity, the reliability of a company form of organization, and they are permitted to invest in your company. In an LLP form of organization, not always they can invest freely. They'll have to take the RBI approval. In partnership, foreign investors cannot invest. So here you have some advantages, and especially in the current scenario where people are taking a lot of funding from outside investors, it helps to have like a company form of organization. And in company form of organization, you can either have a private company or a public company. Public company allows you to accept money from the public at large. So if I want to raise funds in India itself, I can also list my shares on the stock exchange and collect money from the public at large. So that ways it is easier, which I cannot do in partnership form of organization, which I cannot do in a LLP form of organization. In these two forms of organization, only the partners can invest, but the company cannot accept money from the public at large. So there are some advantages, which are a lot of advantages, in fact, which are associated with the company form of organization. Now, mutual agency that we discussed for partnership form of organization is available and is applicable, not available, is applicable only to the partnership form of organization, whereas one partner is responsible for the other. LLP is similar to partnership, but it doesn't have the mutual agency concept, which means that the partner is liable to for the act for his own acts, and the firm is liable for the acts of all the partners, provided they are within the scope of authority. Why within the scope of authority? Because we studied law of agency under the Contract Act. So here we know that a partnership is nothing but an agency. An agent is the principal is responsible liable for the agent only and only when the agent is acting within the scope of his authority in the ordinary course of business. In case the agent is acting outside the scope of his authority, then the principal is not liable. He is only liable when the agent is acting outside the scope of his authority in case of an emergency. When he's acting in case of an emergency, in that case, he can act outside the scope of his authority, provided he is helping the principal reduce or minimize his loss, correct? So that is what is something that is permissible. Now, other than that, it has to be for profit only. Everything, whether you have a partnership form of organization, LLP form of organization, or a company form of organization, everything has to be for profits only. In company form of organization, we can have a Section 8 company, which is not for profit company. But in the other two, you can have those two form of organization only and only if you are doing it for profits only. Otherwise, you cannot have partnership and LLP. There's a distinction between the two. I'd asked the same in the paper also, but the answer was not honestly very satisfactory. You could have added a lot more points, which I felt uh, that were not added. Co-ownership, again, is something that was asked in the paper. Co-ownership is basically when you're owning the property together. So there is no agent and all of that. So please read through co-ownership, because that can be asked as a exam question. Now, just give me a minute, please. Just 1 second. Yes. So now, yes. Now coming to the different kinds of partnership, what are the different kinds of partnership that we have? So with regards to duration, with regards to the extent of business, if you are talking about duration, then you have partnership at will and partnership for fixed period. Partnership at will is basically something that you can dissolve at any point of time you desire. It is at your will. For a fixed period means that I've entered into partnership for a fixed period. So I've entered into a partnership, say with Wadia sir, for a fixed period, that once the students give their examination in Jan 25 or May 25, after that the partnership will come to an end. So it is available only till that point of time. After that, the partnership will come to an end. Partnership at will is when any of the parties desire that they want to end the partnership, they can end the partnership. With regards to business, we have general partnership and particular partnership. General partnership is with respect to general business at large that they decide that we want to enter into. Particular partnership is where they come together for a particular venture or undertaking. So, for example, if I and Vadia sir decide that the road in front of the class has to be something that has to be you know, made, like I have to make a new road, then in that case, that's a particular partnership. So in this case, till the time the road is made, the partnership is there. As soon as the road work is finished, then the partnership will come to an end. So here that is called as particular partnership. Then we have the partnership deed, the most important thing. Now, partnership deed and LLP agreement, both of them are the same. In the module, in your textbook, we have points for what should be there in the partnership deed. But in case tomorrow, just a little tweak in the paper, and they ask you what are the clauses that should be there in the LLP agreement, then in that case you will write down the exact same clauses. The only difference here maybe would be you will add details of who are going to be the designated partners, क्योंकि वहां पे वो है. Other than that, everything else remains the same. So what are the details? Just go through them quickly. name of the partnership firm, name of all the partners, nature and place of business of the firm, commencement of the partnership, duration of partnership, capital contribution, PSR, admission, retirement, rate of interest, capital drawings on loans, settlement of accounts, salary, commission, expulsion, and may delete or add any other provision as may be needed. So if it is asked in the paper, if you are unable to remember what are the points that are there in partnership, first is you can write it in your own words, obviously. But secondly, what you can do is just you can think about the chapter and you can think what are the things that you learn in the chapter, and accordingly you can add your points there. Then coming to the different types of partner, you have an active partner, person who is actively management in the day-to-day functioning of the partnership is called as an active partner. As soon as he retires, he will have to put a public notice on retirement saying that he is no longer going to be a partner in the firm. Then you have a sleeping partner. Sleeping partner or dormant partner is basically any partner who is not involved in the day-to-day functioning. So he's given money, but he's not involved in the day-to-day functioning of the business. Then you have a nominal partner. He's a partner who lends his name to the firm because uske naam mein thoda वजन है. So he's giving his name to the firm. He is not going to be involved in the working of the firm. He is not going to be involved in the management of the firm. He is not going to be involved in any profits of the firm. But he will be liable to third parties because his name is there. He will be liable. So if, say, for example, you start a partnership firm and tomorrow you just put my photograph and say that she's a partner when I'm actually not a partner. This is different from a holding out, okay? Here I'm partner. I'm only giving my name to you. So I'm giving my name to you, using that name, and basis that if you get clients, then in that case, I'll be called as a nominal partner. So I'll be liable to the third parties. But when it comes to holding out, he is a partner who knowingly represents himself or allows himself to be represented as a partner when he's actually not, then in that case, he will be responsible to third parties, because if the third parties give any credit to the firm basis the holding out, and he's called as a partner by holding out or partner by estoppel. Then you have your outgoing and incoming partner. Incoming partner is where there is an existing partnership and you're adding a new partner to the existing partnership. It's called an incoming partner. Existing partnership, one partner decides to go out, then that is called as an outgoing partner. Then you have your partner in profits only, who is only there for sharing the profits. He will not be sharing the losses. And yes, I think we have covered all of them. So these are the different kinds of partners. And partner by holding out, high chances that it can be asked as a, something as a case study question there. Now, what are the relationship between the partners? So partners are uh, responsible for the act of each other. Their rights, duties, liabilities is something which is discussed as per is governed as per the partnership deed. So partnership deed will specify everything, and the partners have to act within the scope of the authority that is given in the partnership deed. And when they act within the scope of the authority, then the other partners are liable because mutual agency is there, and in that case their liability becomes unlimited. Anything outside the scope of the authorities, if the partners do, then in that case he will be responsible for the same. Now, then coming to the conduct of the business, it says the right to take part in the conduct of the business. Every partner is entitled to participate in the conduct of the business. At no point of time can I say that you cannot participate in the conduct of the business, or by an agreement I cannot exclude him from participating in the conduct of the business, because that is something which is given by the Partnership Act. So he can be involved no matter which kind of a partner he is. He can be involved in the conduct of the business if he desires to do so. He has to attend diligently to his duties. He has the right to express his opinions. So normally when there is a partnership firm and when they decide on what to do, what not to do, there's a possibility that, some of the partners may agree, some may not agree. Correct? If you are a group of friends and if you decide to go somewhere out, then there's a possibility that two of you may want to go somewhere else, the other three may want to go somewhere else. So here, similarly in partnership firm, there are always going to be disagreements. And when there are disagreements, what happens is that they decide between themselves by voting in majority. So if majority of the partners agree to a particular thing, then they go ahead and do that particular thing. So that ways they don't need consent of all the partners. Only and only in one scenario, they will need consent of all the partners, and that is your change in the nature of business. When I'm changing my nature of business, the reason why I have why the partnership has come into existence. So today, if I have a CA practice and I decide that, okay, now we don't want to have a CA practice and we want to have something like a legal matter ka practice, then in that case, all the partners have to agree. And in that case, we can't say that by majority we have decided to change to, a law firm, and now we are going to be a law firm. No, you can't do that. You need, in case of change of nature of business, you need the approval of all the partners. Majority of partners will not work for change in nature of business. For all other matters which are there, you can have approval of majority of partners. Then you have the right to access and to inspect copy books of accounts. This is a generic point which you can just add whenever you want to, when you don't know what to write in partnership. Okay. Now, what are the mutual rights and liabilities? They are not entitled to receive remuneration. It is not a mandatory thing that they will get remuneration, but if it is agreed between the partners as per the partnership deed that they will be entitled to X rupees of remuneration, in that case, they should get the remuneration. They'll be entitled to share the profit and losses equally if nothing is mentioned in the partnership deed. If it is mentioned, then they will share in that PSR. Then entitled to interest on capital payable out of profits only. So if it is mentioned that they will be entitled to some interest on the capital contribution that they are giving to the firm, then they will get the same, and that can be only out of the profits of the firm. If they have given any amount which is over and above the capital, so if the capital requirement is of 1 lakh, but I have paid 2 lakh rupees because the firm needed that money, then in that case, on that amount, I'll get 6% per annum interest. Firm to indemnify the partner in respect of payments made during the course of business or in case of emergency. So if I am a partner and if I am going to Delhi for the work of the partnership firm, or I'm traveling abroad for the work of partnership firm, then whatever expenses I incur, that I can claim from partnership. Similarly, if I incur any loss or any uh, 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 what do you call, damage due to the willful neglect of the partner, then the partner has to indemnify the firm. So if a partner is doing something which is causing a loss to the firm, then in that case, the partner has to indemnify the firm. So as a partner, if I'm responsible to file the GST returns, and if I don't file the GST returns on time, and there's interest and penalty and all of that, which is leviable on the firm, then in that case, due to my neglect, that has not been done, which is why the penalty has come, in which case I will have to indemnify the firm. Second. Then, next, coming to partnership property. What is partnership property? Partnership property is nothing but the joint estate of the partners. So everything that the partners decide that they want to put in the partnership property, they can get it and they can put it in the partnership property. That will be called as a partnership property. It belongs to the partnership firm. Now, after the business has started, and once the partnership firm starts earning money, then out of the money of the partnership firm, if they go and buy any property, that will also be included as the partnership property. But sometimes what happens is that the partner may use his personal assets for the business of the firm, but he does not intend it to be the partnership property. So when deciding whether a property is a partnership property or not a partnership property, we will have to see what is the intention. If the intention is to use that property for the purpose of uh, you know, of sorry, the intention of the property is such that that can be used by anyone in the firm and it belongs to the firm, then it is a partnership property. But if I'm getting my car every day, or if I'm getting my personal laptop to office every day and using it for the purpose of business, but if someone else will ask me to, say that, can I use the car? I wouldn't give him the car. Then in that case, that's not a partnership property. So partnership property, whether it's a partnership property or not, depends upon the intention of the partner and whether they want to make it as a partnership property or not. Goodwill is something which is also included in your partnership property. Goodwill is basically the reputation of the business. So that is something that is also a partnership property and that can be sold out separately. When the goodwill is sold, we had studied in the Contract Act restraint of trade, exceptions to restraint of trade, correct? So when the goodwill is sold, then in that case, the buyer can put reasonable restrictions on the firm or on the partner saying that you cannot use this goodwill for a particular time. And that will be something which is not void because that is something which is an exception to restraint of trade. Restraint of trade is something void, but this is an exception to restraint of trade and hence it will not be void. Then application of property of the firm. The property of the firm can be used for the business of the firm only and cannot be used for any other purpose. Then you have your personal profits earned by partners. Any personal profits made by partners has to be returned back to the firm because you cannot make personal profits, any personal profits from the transactions of the firm. Again, a very small point, but it was asked in a case study. And when asked, again, I said there are certain things that I would want you to write in your exam sheet. So this is one of the things that when it is asked, he's making personal profit, something which is, of course, you have to give it back to the firm. But then you have to write that any personal profits as per the Partnership Act, any personal profits that are made has to be given back to the firm. So from the transactions of the firm has to be returned back to the firm. So that is something that you will have to clearly mention in your answer. Don't okay, that I'll discuss tomorrow when I'm discussing the general points. Now, rights and duties of a partner, we will study one by one. Just 1 second. Yes. When I'm adding a partner to the partnership firm, what happens is that from the time he is becoming the partner, he will be responsible for the liabilities of the firm. Till the time he was not a partner, he will not be responsible for the liabilities of the firm. Even if by agreement he says that I will be responsible, or the partners agree that he will be responsible for the liabilities of firm from the date the firm has started. Even then, he will not be responsible for the liabilities of the firm. He will be responsible from the date of his joining and going forward. So till that time, the other partners are responsible. So if A, B, and C are partners in the partnership firm, all three of them are responsible. Now, if they add D today, then in that case, A, B, C, and D, all four of them are responsible from today. That is admission. Retirement of partner, if I'm an active partner, I have to give a public notice. Sleeping partners don't need to give a public notice. So if he's an active partner, he's giving a public notice. From the date of public notice, he is not liable for the acts of the firm. But till the date of public notice, he is very much responsible for the acts of the firm and his liability will be there. Then in that, then the other part of changes in firm is about your insolvency of partner. Again, asked very simple questions. This is again very simple question, but again, most of y'all got it wrong, saying what is insolvency of a partner. So basically, when his liabilities are more than the asset, the partner becomes insolvent. As soon as he becomes insolvent, he is not a partner in the firm. He is not responsible for the acts of the firm. The firm is not responsible for his acts. So these are the points you have to write. The insolvent partner cannot be continued as a partner. He'll cease to be the partner from the very date on which the order or adjudication is made. The estate of insolvent partner is not liable for the acts of the firm. The firm is also not liable for the acts of the partner. And the insolvency can result in dissolution if there are more than only two partners. But if there are more than two partners, the other partners can decide whether they want to continue or they want to dissolve the firm. So insolvency of partner, and we had also asked a question on expulsion of partner. किधर गया वो? Yes. Expulsion of partner. I told you that these are the four main points you have to remember, and I had got very creative answers for expulsion of partner. Please remember that most of the papers I've also written, please study expulsion and go, because that is something that can be asked. It's like a very common question. So what is it saying? That the expulsion must have existed in the contract between the parties. First, it has to be there in the agreement, exercised by a majority of the partners in good faith. There were two questions. One is we had discussed that the wives fight at a whatever they go out and they have a fight and then the husband expels the other partner. That is not good faith. But if he's doing something which is not for the benefit of the firm, and then if I'm I am expelling the partner, then in that case, it will be something which is in good faith. So in the question that was there in the paper, he was being expelled for valid reasons. Then it is good faith. Then expulsion can be done provided it is there in the contract, majority of the partners are agreeing, and it is in the, if these conditions are not present, then the expulsion is not deemed to be in the bona fide business of the firm. If these three things are not there, then in that case, you cannot say the expulsion is correct. So please read the question properly. Remember the 3 points or the 4 points which are there for expulsion, and ensure you write the exact 4 points as it is. In the class also, we have written the same in the notes. Please ensure that these points are written to score full marks. Otherwise, answer is right, but you will get lesser marks, okay? So expulsion, insolvency, and removal of partner, resignation of partner, and admission of partner. These are the 4 ways in which there is a change in the firm. What are the relationship of partners to third parties? Again, very important here is that the partner is the agent of the firm and they are acting for all, and that is why they are responsible for act of each and every partner that we have studied, mutual agency basically. Now, what is important here is implied authority. So partner has implied authority to do everything and anything that is there in the partnership firm, provided he is acting within the scope of authority. But sometimes there are things which are not included in the implied authority. Things which are not included in the implied authority are very, very important. It can be asked as a 4-mark or a 5-mark question in itself. First, it is saying that submit a dispute relating to the business to arbitration. So we have discussed arbitration. Arbitration is basically where I go outside, we appoint an arbitrator under the Arbitration Act, and he will settle the dispute. So I don't have to wait for the court settlement to happen, which will take a long time and lot of cost. So if I have to submit dispute to arbitration, I cannot do it by myself. Even though I'm an active partner, I have to take approval of the other partners. Opening a bank account on behalf of the firm. Then easier ones are acquiring immovable property, transfer immovable property, enter into partnership on behalf of the firm. This is something which we cannot do. Then next is compromise or relinquish any claim or portion of the claim by a firm. So when I go to the court and my claim, there's a claim that is there in my name. So if I have, if I've demanded in the court case that I want 10 lakh rupees. Now I want to relinquish some part of it and I say that, okay, I'm okay taking 5 lakh rupees. I can't relinquish it by myself. I have to take the approval of all the partners, even if I'm an active partner. Withdraw a suit or proceedings filed on behalf of the firm. If I want to take back any case that I've filed, I can't do that without the approval of all the partners. Admit any liability in suit or proceedings. So when the court will ask you that, are you responsible or are you guilty of this? Then I cannot by myself go and admit any liability. I have to take approval of all the partners. If the firm as a whole agree that, okay, we are guilty and we should plead guilty, then in that case, I can admit liability. Otherwise, I can't do it by myself. So again, this part is very important. Submit dispute to arbitration, opening bank account, transfer immovable property, acquire immovable property, enter into partnership firm, relinquish any claim, withdraw any suit that is filed, and last is admit any liability. So please remember these points as it is. Otherwise, when asked in the question, you will just write random points and you'll lose out on the marks there, okay? Then you have your extension and restriction of partners' implied authority. If there is an implied authority that has been placed before the partners, then that implied authority, just a second. Is the result out? Which result है ना final का? Late in the evening. Perfect. Yeah. So if there is any implied authority, then in that case, implied authority है, restrictions place किया है कि partner जो है, for example, cannot withdraw. In the partnership agreement, I've mentioned that a partner cannot by himself, even if he's an active partner, borrow more than rupees, say 10 lakhs. or 20 lakhs, say for example. So anything about 20 lakh rupees, the partner will have to take the approval of all the partners. Now that is the restriction placed. Now, if I go beyond that restriction and take that money, then what is the liability for the third party? So it is saying that if there is a restriction of 20 lakhs for borrowings placed and the third party knows of the restriction, he is aware that if it is about 20 lakh rupees and all partners approval is required, still that person goes and gives the loan, then in that case the firm will not be responsible. But if the third party is unaware of such a thing and then he gives in good faith, then in that case the firm will be liable to the third party. Okay, again a small point, very small point, but can be asked as a case study question. Next, partner's authority in emergency, because it is agency, and we know that in case of agency, agent can do anything so as to reduce a loss as a man of ordinary prudence would. Similarly, partners can do anything, even with things which are outside the scope of his authority, provided it reduces the loss for the other partners and the firm, and it is something that a man of ordinary prudence would do. Okay. Now, effect of admission by a partner. So when you are going for a case, so for example, you remember I had given the example saying that I had to go to court once and I had to admit the liability there, correct? So now when I'm admitting the liability, am I the director of the company? No. But I'm going and admitting liability as an authorized representative, correct? So similarly, when a partner goes into the court, now if there are 10 partners, all 10 partners are not standing before the judge. Only one of them is standing there. And if he admits admits a liability or admits a statement, makes a statement and says that, okay, this is what we have done, then that is a admission by all the partners is what is believed. Then notice to acting partner. If I send the income tax notice and I send the income tax notice to the active partner, then in that case, it will be believed that I have served income tax notice to all of them. Now, the active partner forgets to inform the other partners कि ऐसा कुछ भेजा है, then in that case, it is the active partner's responsibility. The third party का कोई responsibility नहीं है. It is believed कि मैंने सबको notice दे दिया अगर मैंने एक partner को notice दे दिया है तो ठीक है. Liability to third party, liability of partners for acts of the firm jointly and severally liable, liability of firm as wrongful acts of the partner done in the ordinary course within authority, firm will be responsible for the act of the partner, liability for misapplication by partner or misapplication by the firm. In both the cases, the firm will be held liable. Okay. Yes, again, very, very important, right of transferee of a partner's interest. So normally partnership का जो भी interest है, that cannot be transferred to anyone else. But sometimes what happens is that the right is given as a security towards any loan taken. So I will transfer my interest in case the loan is not repaid. In that case, the bank is now the transferee, correct? Now, in this case, the bank is the transferee. So bank, if he is the transferee of a partner's interest, what are the things he cannot do? 3 things he cannot do. One is interfere in the conduct of the business, require accounts, or inspect the books. These are the 3 things that he cannot do. So he can only take the profits from the firm or anything that is due from the firm, but he cannot be involved in the day-to-day running, interference in the course of conduct of the business. No matter how knowledgeable he is, we don't need his knowledge and he should not give his gyan to us. Secondly, he cannot require the accounts. He cannot ask for the accounts or he cannot inspect the books of accounts of the firm. When can he inspect the books of accounts of the firm? When the firm is dissolved and the transferring partner ceases to be a partner, then in that case he can determine and he can check whether the amount that is being given as a outgoing partner for or the dissolved firm, that interest has been correctly calculated or not, and the not the interest in the sense interest on capital or anything, but the entire share of that partner, whether that share has been correctly calculated or not, is something that he needs to check. And for that, he can ask for the books of accounts, but otherwise he cannot interfere. He cannot ask for books of accounts. He cannot inspect the books of accounts of the firm. Then coming to minors admitted to the benefits of partnership. I was really surprised when you got this one wrong because this is really not much that is there. इसमें बहुत ही simple है, is that if I am a minor, then I can be a partner. Minor जो है will not be liable for anything, but he can take the benefits, he can take the profits. Now, when the minor is becoming a major, then he has 6 months time. In this 6 months time, he has to decide whether he wants to be a partner or he doesn't want to be a partner. If he wants to be a partner, he will tell them, I want to be a partner, and he will start acting like any other partner. When he doesn't want to be a partner, at that point of time, he will give a public notice. What did I say? That when he does not want to be a partner, he has to give a public notice saying that I don't want to be a partner, and he will not be responsible as a partner if the notice is given within 6 months of becoming a major. But if I want to be a partner, I don't have to give a public notice. I can just continue to be a partner. If I don't say anything, then I will be a partner in the firm. So for being a partner, you don't need to give a public notice. For being a partner, you don't need to give a public notice. Please remember, only if you don't wish to continue as a partner, then you will have to give a public notice. Expulsion insolvency अपना हो गया. Liability of estate of the deceased partner may be absolved from liability for future obligations, but जो भी death के पहले का जो liability है उसके लिए the partner will be responsible, and public notice is not required in case of death. Outgoing partner to carry on competing business, he can have a competing business. So if I leave a CA firm and I want to start my CA firm, I can have, but they can put a reasonable restriction on me saying that I cannot use the firm name and I cannot represent myself as a partner of the firm. So they can put reasonable restrictions saying that you cannot operate in this particular area for such a period of time, and those restrictions will not be considered to be in restraint of trade. So they will not be considered to be void if they are reasonable restrictions that are put on me as an outgoing partner. When can outgoing partner share subsequent profit? Again, something that has been asked. When can they share subsequent profit? So it says that when the outgoing partner is going out, then he's not liable for the acts of the firm, but he's also liable to take whatever his capital contribution or any money or profits that has to be taken from the firm. He can take that from the firm. Now, that has to be paid by the firm immediately on retirement. But in case the firm is delaying his, proceeds that are to be given to the partner, then in that case, if the final settlement is not done, then he will be entitled to the share in profits in the future also till the time the accounts are settled, or he can claim interest at the rate of 6% per annum. So 6% per annum, बहुत लोगों ने लिखा था. Share of profit of the firm, most of the people had missed out. Revocation of continuing guarantee by change in the firm. Continuing guarantee अगर दिया है in respect of transactions in absence of agreement are revoked as to future transactions from the date of change in the constitution of the firm. So if there are 5 partners and one partner leaves, constitution of the firm मेरा change हो गया, and if there is a change in the constitution of the firm, the guarantee is revoked for all future transactions, not for the past transaction. Past transaction के लिए still you are responsible. ठीक है? So that is continuing guarantee. So a lot of questions asked from this particular chapter, and I hope you've now realized that where you're going wrong. I hope you've collected the papers. I've tried to put in as many comments as I could in your paper so that you can, realize that where you are going wrong exactly. So I hope that helps you. Now coming to registration and dissolution of the firm. So this is some portion of it which we have already discussed is basically registration of partnership firm is optional. I can register if I want to. If I don't want to register, that's perfectly okay. Then there'll be non-consequences of registration. when I am registering, I cannot use the words such as crown, emperor, empress, empire, king, imperial, queen, all of that, because this act is a 1932 act before Independence का act. इसके लिए यहाँ पे ये सब words दिए गए. Now, when you study the LLP Act and the Companies Act, there they will say that your name cannot resemble any other company or LLP. It cannot register, it cannot resemble any other registered trademark. तो वो ट्रेडमार्क के साथ नहीं कर सकता. यू कैन नॉट यूज द वर्ड्स विच आर प्रोहिबिटेड और विच रिक्वायर स्पेशल अप्रूवल. सो इफ आई यूज वांट टू यूज द वर्ड्स बैंक, stock exchange, insurance, these are the words I cannot use. I cannot use government, defense, anything which is pertaining to the government. Such words I cannot use. So वहां पे दोनों में सेम है, यहाँ पे थोड़ा अलग है. In the class, we had done that distinction between all three types of organizations. So please go through that for the purpose of knowing the difference between all three of them, correct? Now, consequences of non-registration. Again, we have studied that no civil suit by firm or other co-partners against third party, no set of claim more than ₹100. Aggrieved party can bring legal action against us. Third party can sue the firm. Partners cannot bring legal action against each other. However, can sue for dissolution of firm or for realization of profits. Yes. Yes. There was this one case study which was there in the first page of your textbook, which I told you that it's a different kind of case study. So I would request you to go through this one in case it is asked. It's never asked yet, but it can be asked in your paper. It's a different case study. Basically, AN companies, the partnership which is registered, there are two partners, A, B, and three partners, A, B, and C. Now they added a new partner, D. No, they've not added a new partner D. Sorry, A died and B and C are continuing the business, and B and C has filed a suit against someone else. So whether the suit is something which is maintainable. So here A, B, C, all three are registered with the registrar of partnership, and hence this suit is maintainable because all the partners are registered with the registrar of partnership. But say for example, after A died, B, C, and D was added, and these details are not informed to the registrar of partnership. Now, can AN company partnership or AN associates file a suit against the third party? Is that maintainable? Then in that case, it is not maintainable because these details are not registered with the partnership firm. So just read that. कभी पूछा नहीं है, but chances are that they can ask such a thing because it's already given in your module. Dissolution of firm, dissolution of partnership. Again, very commonly asked question. Again, most of you all got it wrong. Dissolution of partnership is where there is a partnership. A, B, C, D. चारों partner है. This is a partnership. Now D goes out. A, B, C still run the business. So there is dissolution of partnership only. They're still running on the business, but the ABCD partnership has been dissolved. This is dissolution of partnership. Dissolution of firm में where everything has been dissolved, books of accounts closed, सबको अपना अपना profit मिल गया, and end of the business, then that is dissolution of firm. Okay, so we'll read through the points once again so that you have some clarity here. It involves discontinuation of business in partnership. It does not affect continuation of business. It only involves reconstitution of the firm. क्या लिखा है उधर? It only involves reconstitution of the firm. It involves winding of the firm and requires realization of assets and settlement of liabilities. It only requires constitution and requires only revaluation of assets and liabilities. Firm may be dissolved by the order of the court. Dissolution of partnership is not ordered by the court. It necessarily involves dissolution of partnership. It may or may not involve dissolution of firm. It involves final closure of the books of the firm. It does not involve final closure of the books of the firm. So again, please ensure, important है, लिख के जाओ, याद रख के जाओ. Mode of dissolution of the firm. Dissolution by court अगर होगा तो इन दिस केस वन इज वॉलंटरी, जहाँ पे खुद से अपन ने कर दिया तो वहां पे अपना म्यूचुअल अग्रीमेंट है. कंपलसरी डिसोल्यूशन, हैपनिंग ऑफ इवेंट, अगर दो पार्टनर, एक इंसॉल्वेंट हो गया या एक पार्टनर मर गया, देन इन दैट केस अगेन सर्टेन कंटिजेंसीज, आई हैव टू डिसॉल्व द फर्म और बाय नोटिस आई गिव अ नोटिस, लेट्स डिसॉल्व द फर्म, एंड देन दे डिसॉल्व द फर्म. सो दैट इज बाय mutual agreement without the order of the court. And then we have with the order of the court, which says that insanity, unsound mind agar ho jata hai, then the court may say that, you'll have to end the partnership. Permanent incapacity ho jata hai, misconduct ho jata hai, which has an adverse effect on the business of the company. Then there is persistent breach of agreement. Again, इसके अंदर के 4 points and just an equitable ground के 4 points मैंने बोला था, याद रख के जाना. तो यहाँ पे persistent breach of agreement, embezzlement, keeping erroneous accounts, holding more cash than allowed, and refusal to show accounts despite repeated request. Then you have transfer of interest. Agar partner has transferred the interest to someone else, then the other partners can go to the court and say that let's dissolve the firm. Continuous perpetual losses and just and equitable grounds. What are just and equitable grounds? Deadlock in management, partners not on talking term, loss of substratum. They are unable to decide on what to do now because there's a group like a thing formed where two partners agree to one thing, other two don't agree to that. And gambling by partners on a stock exchange. So this question was asked for 6 marks. Most of y'all, what have y'all done is, probably y'all didn't have the time. That's possible because end में लिखा था तुमने. But you have just mentioned permanent incapacity, misconduct, transfer of interest, persistent breach, continuous losses. But you will have to explain, no? If you just write the headers and come, then I'm not going to give you 6 marks. If it is for 6 marks, if I ask for 2 marks, if you just write the headers, I'll give you your 2 marks if you write all the points. But if it is for 6 marks, I'm expecting you to explain each and every point. If you're not explaining those points, then I'm not going to give you marks, even if you write all the points, because it's 6 marks. I want you to explain. When you say persistent breach of agreement, I'm expecting you to write down the 4 points. When you say just equitable grounds, I'm expecting you to write down those 4 points. So each and every point has to be explained if this question is asked for 6 marks. Okay, otherwise you will not get your marks. Dissolution without order of the court, अपने को पता है. Consequences of dissolution. 1 second, yes. Consequences of dissolution is the last part here. It says liability for the partners. Once the partnership has been dissolved, I'm not doing through that. I'll just quickly tell you. Once a partnership has been dissolved, then in that case, the partners cannot just end saying, okay, third parties, we are not responsible because partnership has been dissolved. Now, nothing responsible. They have to ensure that all the pending work that is there is properly completed and handover is done properly, and then they can wind up the business. When they are winding up the business, they will have to settle their partnership accounts. Settlement of partnership accounts, I'll just show you the book also. I want to show you all the points because that was something which was not correctly done. Then they have the authority. They will have to do all things for the purpose of winding up. And till the time winding up is not done, they will also be responsible to third parties. And then end is payment of firm debts and separate debts. Both of that we'll do from the textbook. Just give me a moment. Is this time more better for you guys as compared to the morning time? अभी तो छुट्टी होगा ना? हाँ ना, कुछ तो बोलो.
We have maths.
Morning is better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we can have it tomorrow morning. I thought सुबह सुबह उठने को नहीं होता है, इसके लिए मैंने
We have
uh,
12th का maths का class or test, which like there are 2 batches, but then both of them collide.
okay. And वो वाला giving here Jan 25 वाले कौन कौन आया आज? दर्शन है and Zain है. Dhruti is also there.
Afternoon also, I think so.
Okay, okay. ठीक है. So we'll have the morning class. I am full. Yes. Yes. Settlement of partnership accounts, correct? So here, see, how will I settle? First, I will settle the losses, including deficiencies from capital, shall be first paid. Because agar mera profit hai, out of that, whatever is the loss that I've incurred, so my profit is reduced to that extent. So that much money, I don't have only. So first, I have to remove the losses. Then the assets, including any sums contributed, shall be applied in the following manner for payment of debt of the firm to third party. So first I will pay to third parties, then paying to each partner what is due to him from the capital. So capital के ऊपर जो भी उसको पैसा देने का है वो मैं दूंगी. This is not due to him on account of capital. So interest is on account of capital, that I will exclude, and then the residue shall be paid in the PSR. So when I'm asking you how is settlement done, I want you to write this exact part. Again, this is something that has been asked previously in the examination. So remember the points as it is. कि पहले losses है फिर third party को करेंगे due to him from capital, due to him on account of capital, and then I will distribute the amount that is there. Payment of firm debts and separate debts. So अगर मेरा joint debts है, then the partner first has to apply the property of the partnership firm for payment of firm debts, and then it can be used to apply to separate debts. अगर partner का खुद का property है, तो पहले he will pay for the separate debts, and then he will pay for the firm debts. Just 1 second. We'll take a 2-minute break and then start the LLP Act. Yes. So now first we will start with the Partnership Act, and then we will go to the LLP Act. So it's easier to understand the LLP Act. Sorry, we'll start with the Companies Act. So Companies Act is basically for company form of organization. This act is applicable to everyone, and it will also be applicable to companies which are formed previously under the Companies Act 1956. It will also be applicable to insurance companies, banking companies, electricity supply companies, and any other company which the central government may notify saying that it is applicable to this particular company. What are the features of a company form of organization? It's a separate legal entity, so it's different from its members. So till now, when we see any compliances to be done in case of company and in case of LLP, you will see that for the company, there is a different fine. For the directors, there's a different fine. For LLP, there's a different fine. For the designated partners or the partners, there's a different fine. So because they're considered to be two different person, that is why it is said that it has separate legal entity. It is separate from its members. So members will file their own return, company will file another return, correct? Then it has perpetual succession. When in case of partnership, we study that if there are two partners and one partner dies, one partner becomes insolvent, then in case the partnership comes to an end. But in case of company form of organization, it will not come to an end. It will continue. It will, the death or insolvency of a member will not affect the continuance of a company form of organization. So what happens in a company form of organization is that in case of company form of organization, when there is a death, so out of 2 members, say if it's a private company or if it's a public company, minimum 7, then in that case, what will happen is that if one person dies and if the number falls below 2, then in that case, I will get 6 months time from the death, and within that 6 months, I'll have to find another partner. If I don't do that, then in that case, another partner, another member, same for both LLP and company, दोनों के लिए same provision है. तो पार्टनरशिप एलएलपी में अगर दो पार्टनर्स है, एक मर गया, 6 मंथ्स के अंदर नया पार्टनर ढूंढना है. सिमिलरली कंपनी में 2 पार्टनर्स, वन डाइज, another member I have to go and find. Otherwise, the liability of the members or the partners, as the case may be, will become unlimited. So perpetual succession is there, but the number cannot fall below the minimum that is there. If it falls, find another within 6 months time. Otherwise, the liability will become unlimited from the 7th month. So from the completion of 6 months, the liability becomes unlimited. Liabilities are limited unless it's an unlimited company where the liability is unlimited. It's an artificial judicial person. It can sue, it can sign in its own name with the help of a common seal, and it can enter into contracts in its own name, but it cannot do other things, like it cannot get married, it cannot go to jail, it cannot practice any learned profession. So all of these things they cannot do, but otherwise it's a artificial judicial person. It is created by law. It's not a natural person. Common seal again is basically nothing but a stamp kind of a thing that a company puts, which means that the company is signing that particular document. Now, common seal is not something that is mandatory. So if the common seal is not there, then in that case, 2 directors will have to sign the document, and it will be assumed that the sign has been made. If the company has CS, then 1 director, 1 CS will have to sign. In case of LLP, again, common seal is not there. So LLP, either common seal है तो common seal डालने का, नहीं है common seal, then the 2 partners will have to sign. Same provisions apply. Limited liability, perpetual succession, separate legal entity, artificial judicial person, ये सब features वहां पे भी है. Exact same, no changes, correct? Then कॉर्पोरेट व्हील पे आएंगे. व्हाट आर, नो, कॉर्पोरेट व्हील ही पहले करते हैं, ठीक है. कॉर्पोरेट व्हील अगेन वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. आई टोल्ड यू दैट दिस इज समथिंग विच इज देयर ओनली फॉर फाउंडेशन. इंटर में दिस फुल चैप्टर इज देयर, बट this particular part is not covered here. So corporate wheel is basically, there is a distinction between the company and the shareholders, but sometimes it so happens that they want to lift the wheel and they want to treat the company and shareholders as one. This was first done in case of Salmon versus Salmon, where it was where they were treated as one. So they had lifted the wheel there. When can the authorities or the government lift the wheel? Then these points, I want you to remember the bullets. अंदर का point तुम लोग खुद से लिखोगे चलेगा, but at least the main bullets I want you to remember. It says to determine the character of the company, to find out whether it's an enemy or a friend, to protect the revenue or the tax, to avoid a legal obligation, and formation of subsidiaries to act as agent, and the last is for fraud, improper conduct, or to defeat law. तो at least ये 5 point as it is तो लिख दो. Then inside का matter जो है तुम अपने words में लिख सकते हो, that is fine. So basically if I am doing anything to avoid my any legal obligation that is there. So I told you that अगर PF चाहिए तो I need to have at least 10 employees, तो PF mandatory हो जाएगा. अगर PF mandatory होने आता है तो जैसे ही 10 employees होता है, I go form another company and then I have 10 employees there. So I'm avoiding a legal obligation, which is why I want to have different companies. Then in that case, the wheel can be lifted and it can be said that I and company are the same and liability unlimited. Or to protect revenue or tax. If I am a CA, if I am running a company and I'm making fake bills so that expenses can be reduced and tax can be reduced, expenses can be increased and tax can be reduced accordingly, then in order to protect revenue or tax, they can, what do you call, lift the corporate wheel. Or if it is to find out whether the company is run by enemy or friends. So I told you via they make the investments, and then in that case it is actually run by an enemy, but you don't know that it's run by someone in the enemy country or by basically not in favor of the Indian scenario. Then in that case you can lift the corporate wheel and you can determine whether who is the person who is actually running the business. Then company may sometimes be regarded as agent or trustee of its members or another company, and therefore be deemed to have lost its individuality in favor of its principal. Here, the principal will be held liable for the acts of that company. And last is to defeat the provisions of the law or to carry out any fraudulent activity. So these 5 points that we see here are something that you will have to remember. I miss sharing the book on the group the other day. I will share it with you today. And एटलीस्ट जो पॉइंटर्स इसमें है, प्लीज ट्राई कि उतना तुम याद रख के जाओ, तो तुम उतना लिखोगे तो यू विल गेट द मार्क्स एटलीस्ट. बाकी का आगे पीछे का मसाला यू कैन ऐड बाय योरसेल्फ एंड दैट शुड बी ओके. नाउ what are the different kind of companies that we have? On the basis of liability, I have company limited by shares, limited by guarantee, and unlimited company. Correct? So limited by shares, which means that share capital hota hai, and every member is supposed to pay the share capital amount. So my liability is restricted to the amount that is unpaid. Say for example, if the share is for 100 rupees and the call has been made, 80 rupees has been collected. So my further liability to the company is 20 rupees, which is pending per share. More than that, I will never ever be called forward to pay, because liability of a company is limited. So here it is limited by shares. Second is limited by guarantee. In case of guarantee companies, I will give a guarantee. I will say that I will pay X amount if and when required, or when the company goes into winding up. So I have given a guarantee of say 1 lakh rupees. So my liability to the company is of 1 lakh rupees only. So now if the company is going into winding up, they can call forward and they can say, okay, you had guaranteed 1 lakh rupees, please pay your 1 lakh rupees. They cannot ask me to pay 1 lakh 1 rupee or 1 lakh 10 rupee or 1 lakh 50,000. Nothing more than 1 lakh they can ask me to pay. In case of company limited by shares, they can tell you to give the amount at the time of any point of time in the company, during the running of the company, at the time of winding up, any point of time. In case of limited by guarantee, you will be called upon to pay the guarantee amount only and only at the time of winding up and not before that. So before the winding up, you will not be called forward to pay the amount. Just a second. Yes. So company limited by shares, company limited by guarantee. Then you have unlimited company. In case of unlimited company, the liability of the members is unlimited. So here the liability is unlimited, unlike a limited company where the liability is limited. So the personal assets can also be considered in order to pay off the liabilities. Then on the basis of number of members, you have one-person company, private company, public company. One-person company is basically also have small companies. On the basis of members, you have your one-person company. One-person company is basically a company where you have only one person as a member. Now, this one person has to be an Indian citizen, may or may not be a resident in India. And if you are a resident in India, then in that case, you have to be in India for determining whether or not you are a resident in India. You have to be in India for the purpose of 120 days. This person, because he's only one person, and if something happens to him, then where will the MCA go finding the details? So this person will have to have a nominee. This nominee also should be a person who is a citizen of India, resident in India for a period of 120 days, may or may not be a resident in India, and they both have to be individuals. At a point of time, I can be a member of only one OPC, I can be a nominee of any one OPC. If I am a nominee, I have to give my consent. I have to say that, okay, I wish to be the nominee of the company, and my name will be mentioned in the memorandum of association. If at any point of time, I decide that, okay, now I don't want to be the nominee of this company, then I can withdraw my consent. Or the member may decide that he doesn't want me to act as the nominee of the company and he can withdraw the consent. So if he withdraws the consent, then in that case, he will have to find another nominee within a period of 30 days. And that new nominee will have to be registered. He will have to give his consent. This details will have to be sent to ROC, and the new nominee's name will also be mentioned in the memorandum of association. Okay, so this is pertaining to OPC. I hope we have covered everything. And this company cannot be converted into a Section 8 company. It cannot be incorporated or converted into a Section 8 company. It cannot be converted into a NBFC. It can be converted into private and public companies. Yes, then you have your private company. Private company is basically a company which has only 2 members and maximum 200 members. This company cannot accept money from the public at large, and it cannot have more than the members which are there. If it wants to raise funds, and it can do it, so it can do so only by way of private placement. So no minimum paid up capital, minimum 2 members, max 2. Right to transfer shares is restricted. In case of public company, you can transfer the shares any number of times, and you can transfer it to whosoever you want to. In case of private company, that is not possible. Prohibition and invitation to subscribe to securities. Small companies are private company. So OPC and small company both are a type of private company. They are all private companies only. Then in case of small company में क्या सीखा था अपने, that paid up capital should not exceed 2 crores and 20 crores. No, 5 crores and 50 crores. This will change. I will change it and send it to you. And should not be a Section 8 company, holding or subsidiary company. Then you have your public company. Public company में shares जो है freely transferable है. Minimum 7 members है. Maximum unlimited members हो सकता है. You can accept money from the public at large. This is something which is different as compared to a private company, and you can transfer your shares to any person any number of times. So shares are freely transferable. Minimum 7, maximum no limit. Subsidiary of a public company is deemed to be a public company. So what is a subsidiary? Subsidiary and holding company का definition एक बार properly देख लो. Now, when it says holding company, it says company is a holding company in relation to one or more companies, where the company of which such companies are subsidiary companies. तो जिसके पास subsidiary company है, वो holding company. That is the definition of a holding company. Again, repeating what I'm saying, if you're sleeping, that holding company is such a company जिसके पास subsidiary company है. Now, when you go to the definition of subsidiary company, it will tell you that subsidiary company means a whole company in which the holding company controls the composition of board of directors and exercises or controls 1/2 or more than 1/2 of the share capital. तो 50% से ज्यादा shares रखे हैं और composition of board of directors में देख रही हूँ. Composition मतलब मैं decide करूंगी that who will sit on the board of directors of this particular company. If I am controlling that, then I am the holding company, or if I am holding more than 50% shares, then I am the holding company. तो ये subsidiary company है. तो यहाँ पे he is saying that subsidiary of a public company, if a public company is holding more than 50% stake in my company, or a public company is controlling the composition of board of directors, so even though I am a private company, registered as a private company, I will be deemed to be a public company. So subsidiary of a public company is deemed to be a public company. Okay. So here, if I am being controlled by public company or public company holding more than 50% shares, even though I'm registered as a private company, my name is XYZ Private Limited, still I will be deemed to be a public company. Okay. छोटा point है, but पूछ सकते हैं. Then you have your associate companies. Again, associate companies is a company in which the other company has significant influence. What is significant influence defined as? That more than 20% stake, correct? More than 20% voting power or control है, तो वो significant influence है. But which is not a subsidiary. So it has to be somewhere between 20 to 50% and includes a joint venture company. जब लिखोगे associate company पेपर में पूछा था, तो write in this way. It has significant influence. So what are the words I'm looking for? Significant influence होना चाहिए. not a subsidiary company includes a joint venture company. And then in the second bullet, I want you to explain what is significant influence. So anything which is more than 20% of the voting power or control or participation of business is my significant influence. So please ensure that the important words are written in your paper for you to score marks. If you don't write includes a joint venture company, तो मैंने marks काटा है, because that is what I'm expecting you to write. No, if I'm asking you what is an associate company, you have to write it includes a JV. Okay. Then on the basis of capital, access to capital, you have listed company, unlisted company. Listed companies are companies which are listed on recognized stock exchanges in India. Unlisted means they are not listed anywhere. Then you have government companies. Government companies are companies where 51% or more stake is held by the central government, state government, or central and state government together. Foreign company means a company which has been registered outside India, but which has some place in India. Similarly, is a LLP which is registered outside India, but which has some place of business or some business in India as a foreign LLP. Then you have your Section 8 companies. Section 8 companies are companies which are formed for the purpose of, what do you call? For charitable purposes, correct? So for the promotion of arts, science, religion, any other purpose. Now, when I want to be formed as a Section 8 company, I have to take the approval of the central government. Central government will give me approval basis certain restrictions. So they'll put certain restrictions on me and then they will give me that approval. Once the approval has been given to me, I can only work as a Section 8 company and do only things for which I've taken the approval. And if they have placed any restrictions on me, I'll have to comply with those particular restrictions. If I don't comply with that, then the government can take back my approval. The most important thing of a Section 8 company, it's a very special feature of Section 8 company, is that it cannot give dividend to its members. So I cannot distribute dividend to the members. Just 1 second, please. Sorry. So the most important feature of a Section 8 company is that Section 8 company can never give out dividends. So जो भी पैसा है that they have to use for further promoting the business of the company, they cannot distribute that dividend. Now, if in the exam I ask you a question saying that 5 people formed a Section 8 company and then they decided to close the Section 8 company and take the proceeds, distribute it amongst themselves after giving the third parties whatever was due. Then is that a valid thing to do? The answer is no. जो भी पैसा आता है in Section 8 company, that cannot be taken by the members, either in the form of dividend or as a form of winding up proceeds. In no form they can take it with them. They have to give it to the company which is into similar business, या वो fund में डाल सकते, कहीं पे भी डाल सकते, but they cannot take it themselves. Now, when this license is being revoked by central government, what are the 3 things it can direct? Convert its assets and change its name, or wind up the company, or amalgamate with another company having similar objects. So these are the 3 things that it can do. For this, there is a chart which I've given in the main textbook. Please ensure you read the chart and go. Very, very important. 2 points in Section 8. One is whether you can declare dividend. Second is about the winding up by the central government. 2 very important points. पूछ सकते exam में. Then you have your dormant companies. Again, asked in the one of the papers, कौन सा है dormant company? Then you have to say it has no significant accounting transactions. This word is what I'm looking for. No significant accounting transactions. Such a company or an inactive company may make an application for the status of a dormant company. Now, significant accounting transactions may what all things are not included. So there was one question which said that they had no significant accounting transactions, but they had given a 1 CR as advance to some project. When you give 1 CR as an advance for project, then you have to come here and see significant accounting transactions. Mein what are the things which are not there? These things are not there. So if you give 1 CR, then it's a significant accounting transaction. Then it is not a dormant company. Okay. So it is saying payment of
But
fees by.
ma'am, I had a doubt in this one.
Yes, I will just finish this. Let people who have done with the revision, let them go and we can solve the doubts. So it is saying
Okay.
payment of fees by the company to the registrar, payment by it to fulfill the requirements of the act, allotment of shares to fulfill the requirement for maintenance of office records. So even if I am not functioning as a company, in that case I will have to file my documents with registrar. जो भी act में जो भी compliances बोला है, that I will have to do. I will have to maintain my office and my records. Registered office तो रहेगा, that I have to maintain, and allotment of shares to fulfill the requirement of the act. So even if I am not functioning, for the subscribers who pay money at the time of incorporation, I will have to give them the shares. So these 4 things, so I will as such have to do. Only because I'm doing these things does not mean that I'm not a dormant company. Correct? So अगर ये 4 चीज कर रहे तो ये तो normal है, तो कुछ नहीं. But इसके अलावा if I am doing something, then it is a significant accounting transaction, and in that case, the status of dormant company will be taken away. Then you have your Nidhi companies. Nidhi companies में बोलता है cultivating the habit of thrift or cost cutting. So you have this Jain centers where it is only for the Jain community, wherein people take money from the Jains which are there in the community. They use it for the benefit of other Jains who don't have so much money or who need help, or for scholarship for kids who want to go abroad. So it is basically for the mutual benefit of the members, and it is encouraging savings amongst the members. Then that is called as a Nidhi company. Then you have public financial institutions. These are where at least 51% has been held by CG, SG, or partly by any government, and which will include a life insurance corporation, infrastructure development finance company, unit trust of India, and any other company which has been notified. So these are the different type of companies which are there. Now coming to the incorporation of company. तो यहाँ पे first है अपना promoters. Promoters are the people who come up with the business idea that they want to form the particular company, and who conceive the idea of forming a company are called as promoters. They take the necessary steps for the registration of the company. How does incorporation happen? So first is अपना memorandum and articles of association चाहिए. What is memorandum of association? Memorandum of association is nothing but a document which describes the objects of the company, why that particular company is coming into force. That is the objects of the company. Just 1 second, let me get there. Yes. So it is a public, the most important document of the company. It will define what are the objects, what are the things that the company can do, and whatever is not mentioned in its objects, that things cannot be done. So whatever is outside the scope of the objects, as mentioned in the memorandum of association, those are the things you cannot do. Anything that is there in the objects, I can do it. Now, say for example, in my objects, I am into education, but tomorrow if I want to start fashion industry, fashion business, then in that case it is not there in my objects. So if I want to do it, if I can change my objects of memorandum of association, then I can do it. But if I don't change the objects of memorandum of association and go ahead with doing a business which is not there in my MOA, then in that case, that is something which is ultra vires the company and which is void, which means that I cannot take an action against the third party, and the third party cannot take an action against me. So anything which is ultra vires the company is void. So it is called as the doctrine of ultra vires. We'll get there. I'll show you where it is. I don't know right now. Now, but this is a public document, which means that every person who is dealing with the company is deemed to have knowledge of the MOA, which means he has read the MOA. सच्ची में पढ़ा है कि नहीं पढ़ा है doesn't matter, but I'll assume कि तेरे को पता है. Similar to knowledge of Indian law, I told you, whether you know or you don't know कि law ऐसा बोलता है. The fact that you are staying in India, it is deemed that you have knowledge of law, correct? तो वैसा मेमोरेंडम एंड आर्टिकल्स है कि तूने पढ़ा है कि नहीं पढ़ा है डजेंट मैटर, बट अगर तू कंपनी के साथ डील कर रहा है, आई विल अज्यूम दैट यू नो दैट आई एम व्हाट इज मेंशन्ड इन माय मेमोरेंडम, व्हाट इज मेंशन्ड इन माय आर्टिकल्स, बिकॉज दीज आर पब्लिक डॉक्यूमेंट्स व्हिच आर देयर. So doctrine of constructive notice says that every person who's dealing with the company is deemed to have knowledge of the memorandum and articles of association of the company. Then we have a certain standard memorandum of association, which is mentioned in Schedule 1 of the Companies Act. Table A, B, C, D, E में है, and it depends on the different kinds of companies which are there. So, depending on what kind of a company you are, these tables can be referred to for the purpose of memorandum. What are the other things which are there in the memorandum? One is your name clause, which means what is the name that has been approved by the company. Your office clause, where the office will be situated, in which state. Object clause, that is what are the things that I'm going to do within the company. Liability clause, what is the liability of the members, whether it is unlimited liability, it is limited by shares, limited by guarantee, that is what I'll mention here. Then I have the capital clause, wherein I will mention what is my authorized capital, the maximum that I can raise. Then what is the issued, subscribed and paid up capital? So how much I have issued, how much of it is subscribed, how much of it is paid for, पूरा pay किया है, partly pay किया है. When I do calls on shares, it's not fully paid up, correct? So if 10 rupees is the price per share, I have called only 6 rupees. So paid up is my 6 rupee, 4 rupee abhi bhi bacha hai. So what kind of capital I have, how many shares I'm planning to give, what is the face value per share, all of those details I'll mention in my capital clause. Then I have my association clause, subscriber clause, basically saying who are the people who are going to be the subscribers. They will write their name, address, the number of shares that they are taking, what is the price they will pay, and they will sign, and that will again be signed by a witness. In case of OPC, I will also have a nomination clause, which means that in case the member dies, because there's only one person there, then who will be the nominee? That is also something I'll mention in the memorandum of association. Doctrine of ultraviolet discuss किया. Doctrine of ultraviolet में Ashbury railway carriage. So if a question is asked on MOA and if you are mentioning doctrine of ultraviolet, you can write Ashbury railway carriage. Only the name, you don't have to explain the case study at all. Then coming to articles of association. Articles of association basically is determining what the internal day-to-day functioning of the company, how will it happen. So when I have clauses like how will I have the board meetings, how will I have the general meetings, who will come for the meetings, who are my directors, how much remuneration will they get, or how will I make the calls on capital, will I take the entire money, can I take money in advance, if I want to give borrowing powers to the directors, how much they can borrow by themselves, where they will need approval. So all the things pertaining to internal functioning of the company is mentioned in my articles. Again, it is a charter document and it is available in the public, which means every person who is dealing with the company is deemed to have knowledge of the articles of association. But every person who is dealing with the company need not necessarily check कि अच्छा बोर्ड मीटिंग में बोला है कि बोर्ड मीटिंग में 4 मेंबर्स होने चाहिए, सच्ची में इन्होंने बोर्ड मीटिंग किया, आर देयर 4 मेंबर्स प्रेजेंट, दे आर नॉट सपोज्ड टू चेक दैट. सो it is a public document and they should be aware, but they are not supposed to check whether the internal functioning has been done or not, and as per the articles of association, and that comes from your doctrine of indoor management, which is also known as the token rule. किधर गया? Yeah, doctrine of indoor management, which is also known as the Turkand rule, because ये first time Royal British Bank versus Turkand में आया था, that outsiders who are dealing with the company will assume that whatever the articles tell them to do, they have complied with those things, and then they are dealing with the outsider. यहाँ पे 3 exceptions है. If the outsider has नॉलेज ऑफ इरेग्युलरिटी, उसको पता है कि सच्ची में ये लोग ने ऐसा किया ही नहीं है क्योंकि 3 डायरेक्टर तो गोवा घूमने के लिए गए. सो इफ दे हैव एक्चुअल नॉलेज और दे बिलीव दैट देयर इज अ सस्पिशन ऑफ इरेग्युलरिटी, देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि अच्छा वो तीनों वहां गए, देन हाउ डिड दे हैव द मीटिंग. सो इफ दे हैव सस्पिशन ऑफ इरेग्युलरिटी और व्हेन देयर इज फॉर्जरी, इन ऑल द 3 cases the doctrine of indoor management ka exception is not available. Otherwise, outsiders don't have to check whether internal day-to-day compliances has been done by the company or not. Again, in the articles of association, you have the draft articles which are given under table FGHIJ, which is given in schedule 1. So if you are a company, you can just take the draft articles if you don't want to make your own articles. And there is something called as entrenchment. What is entrenchment? So अपन ये पढ़ा था that whenever a company is passing resolution, तो अपना either होता है ordinary resolution या होता है special resolution. Ordinary resolution is where I take more than 50% लोगों का approval and they more than half of them agree कि अच्छा ऐसा कर सकते हैं, तो ordinary resolution. Special resolution जहाँ पे 75% of the people agree that okay this is the thing that I can do, तो वो special resolution हो जाएगा. But when I have a clause in my articles of association which is more stricter than a special resolution, then it is called as entrenchment. So if I have a clause in my article saying that I am the director of the company, if you want to remove me, then in that case 90% of the members have to agree or 95% of the members have to agree. Then it is more stricter than special resolution, क्योंकि special resolution क्या है? 75%. So 50% ordinary, special resolution 75%. Special resolution is only for special circumstances जहाँ पे special resolution act will say कि pass होना चाहिए. And entrenchment is more stricter than the special resolution. So when I'm saying that I want 80%, 85%, anything more than 75% in order to do something, then it is called as a special resolution. तो अगर special resolution है, then sorry, more than 75% hai, then I will call it as a entrenchment clause. So this is about your articles, memorandum and articles ke beech mein you can see the difference, exceptions we have studied. Let's see if there's anything missed. No. No, sorry, we were here. Yes, so I have to give my memorandum and articles of the company. I have to give a declaration by person who is engaged in the formation of company as advocate, chartered accountant, cost accountant, that all the compliances that are required under this act have been complied with. Declaration from subscribers and first name directors that they're okay acting as subscribers and they have not been forced in any way. They are not convicted of any offense pertaining to formation. They have not been found guilty of any fraud, misfeasance. All documents filed with the registrar have complete and correct information and nothing wrong has been filed with the registrar. Then address for correspondence where the registered office will be situated. Then particulars of every subscriber to the memorandum. Just a second. Then the particulars of the directors who are there, particulars of interest of person mentioned in the articles as first director. So all these documents, once you give to the registrar will check these documents and will issue a certificate of incorporation. This certificate of incorporation is the identity, the birth certificate of the company. इसके अंदर mention किया होता है CIN, which is called as the corporate identity number. And every time the company is now dealing with the registrar, he will put the corporate identity number there. And all these documents shall be preserved till the dissolution of the act. So they will never be destroyed. Any false information you publish, you will be liable under 447. What is 447? We don't need to study this year. It's for next year. And if you're doing anything, so if you're filing wrong information with the registrar, then of course there will be a penalty under 447. It is one of the lethal sections of Companies Act. But uske alawa, tribunal can also pass against you. What orders can it pass? Pass such orders as it thinks fit. Direct that the liability of members shall be unlimited. तो तेरा liability unlimited कर सकता है. Direct removal of the name of the company from registrar. Pass order for winding up or such other orders as it may deem fit. तो ये सब orders वो pass कर सकता है against you in case you furnish any wrong information at the time of the formation of the company. इसमें we had also studied about SPICE, Simplified Proforma for Incorporating Companies Electronically, which basically tells you that you can have a company in less than 24 hours if you want to. So that's the most effective way of forming a company. What are the effects of registration? Again, very very important and same है दोनों में. Companies Act, LLP Act दोनों में same है. Effect of registration of company and LLP. What all I can do? Subscribers and all other members shall become members of the company. It will now be a body corporate. It will exercise all the functions of body corporate. So it can buy property, sell property, दूसरे के ऊपर केस कर सकते हैं, दूसरे लोग अपने ऊपर केस कर सकते हैं. If I want to have a common seal, I can have the common seal. So it will be like a legal person different from its members and can do everything that a person can do. So that is the effect of the registration of company and LLP both. I have a small chart for this. I'll share that across in the chart book so that it's easier for you to remember. Classification of capital अपन ने पढ़ा, authorized क्या, issued, subscribed, called up and paid up capital. What are the different kinds of capital that we have? तो अपने पास दो type of capital होता है. एक होता है equity share capital, एक होता है preference share capital. जो preference share capital होता है, they get a preference at the time of winding up of the company. तो अगर winding up होता है तो preference share capital will be first paid and at the time of distribution of dividends. So if dividend has to be given, first preference shares will be given dividend. Once they are being paid, only then the equity shares will be given dividend. So because they have a preference over equity shares, उनको बोलते हैं preference share capital. Equity share capital जो होता है, उनको कोई preference नहीं मिलता है. वो लोग का risk high रहता है, but उनका reward भी high रहता है. तो preference को एक fixed amount ही मिलता है. Equity share का fixed नहीं होता है. अगर बहुत profit हुआ तो ज्यादा पैसा मिलेगा, कम profit हुआ तो कम पैसा मिलेगा. तो high risk, high reward kind of situation है. And equity share capital mein there are two different things. One is with equal voting rights, one is with differential voting rights. That is it that you have to study for differential voting rights. There are no further details given for foundation, so we will not see that. And yes, that is it, correct? So this is about your Companies Act. इसमें ही जो अपना अपन ने अभी registration किया, just see how it is for LLPs. Now, yes, this is the chart. No, not this, sorry. ये वाला जो चार्ट है ना, इफेक्ट ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन, sue and be sued, acquire, own, hold, transfer, movable, immovable property, have common seal and do any other act. This chart, please remember, it's important for both your LLP and your company. Same है दोनों के लिए. Now, before I start to what is LLP and things, just quickly see the process here. Process में क्या है, वहां पे अपने पास प्राइवेट कंपनी है तो 2 members, 1 person कंपनी है तो 1 member चाहिए, पब्लिक कंपनी है तो 7 members चाहिए. यहाँ पे अपने पास 2 जन चाहिए who are willing to start the LLP and who have the intention of earning profits. So similar to how we had in your Partnership Act. In that case, if they agree, they have to file a statement with the MCA along with the LLP agreement, and they will have to take a certificate from a CA saying that all compliances under the act have been complied with. They will also mention the name of the LLP, the proposed business, place where they are going to start the business, and the details of each of the partners. Once you give all of that, so now if you see as compared to the Companies Act, जहाँ पे बहुत बड़ा list था along with your MOA, AOA, यहाँ पे the list is very small. List is also similar to what we have in partnership. नेम का जो अपना प्रोविजंस है वो दोनों में सेम है कि नेम जो है सेम नहीं हो सकता है विद एनी अदर कंपनी और LLP. इट कैन नॉट बी सिमिलर टू एनी अदर कंपनी और ट्रेडमार्क. करेक्ट. अगर वो सेम नेम होता है तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट तुम्हारे तो अगर किसी ने कंप्लेन किया तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट विल कम टू यू एंड विद इन 3 months you will have to change your name. Correct. So after I submit these documents, then the registrar shall within 14 days give me the certificate of incorporation. And जैसे वहां पे अपने पास था corporate identity number, यहाँ पे अपने पास क्या होगा? LLP identity number. It's called as LLP-IN. And every LLP shall have a registered office. ये registered office for company for LLP both same provisions है कि दोनों के पास registered office होगा. And जो registered office है वहां पे जो भी communication भेजना है to the company, whether by the members, whether by outsiders, creditors, by income tax office, GST office, anyone who wants to communicate with the company or the LLP, they can send the documents to the registered office. तो registered office इसके लिए बहुत important होता है. Every time there's a change in the registered office, I will have to inform the ROC. Now, coming here again. तो LLP जो है is basically a mix of your partnership and company form of organization. दोनों का advantages लेके अपना LLP form of organization बनता है. यहाँ पे what are the features of LLP? तो वो body corporate है, perpetual succession है, separate legal entity है, like your company form of organization. Mutual agency यहाँ पे नहीं होता है. So mutual agency we have in partnership, but mutual agency is not there in case of a LLP. वहां पे पार्टनरशिप डीड होता है, यहाँ पे LLP अग्रीमेंट होता है. कंटेंट ऑफ बोथ रिमेन्स द सेम. देन आर्टिफिशियल लीगल पर्सन है, like it can do everything that a normal person can do except for going to jail, getting married, the same thing. Common seal again not mandatory in both company and LLP. Common seal अगर मुझे चाहिए तो ही मैं लूंगी, अगर मुझे नहीं चाहिए तो दो डायरेक्टर्स साइन करेंगे in case of company. एंड कंपनी में अगर डायरेक्टर के अलावा CS भी है then one director one CS will sign. In case of LLP it will be signed by 2 designated partners. Liability limited है. मैनेजमेंट ऑफ बिजनेस सब पार्टनर्स मिलके कर सकते हैं. सिमिलर टू व्हाट वी डिड इन पार्टनरशिप, ऑल द पार्टनर्स कैन टेक पार्ट इन कंडक्ट ऑफ द बिजनेस. सिमिलरली हियर ऑल द पार्टनर्स कैन पार्टिसिपेट. बट जो लीगल कंप्लायंसेस करने का जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है वो डेजिग्नेटेड पार्टनर्स का है. मिनिमम मैक्सिमम मेंबर्स मिनिमम 2 होने चाहिए. बिजनेस फॉर प्रॉफिट्स ओनली. इन्वेस्टिगेशन कॉम्प्रोमाइज वी विल स्टडी. फॉरेन LLP इज बेसिकली एनी LLP which is incorporated outside India but which has a place of business in India. E-filing of documents में whatever documents I'm going to file with LLP, I have to file them electronically. I cannot file them physically or manually. So LLP का जो features है, if you know partnership and you know company which you know, then you can write it by yourself in your own words. Now, yes, body corporate का definition, registered LLP in India or outside India, company in India, outside India, does not include corporation, sole, cooperative society, any other body corporate. ये 3 जो exclusion है वो याद रखना. बाकी LLP in India, outside India, body corporate in India, company in India, outside India. Designated partner, very important. At least 2 designated partner who are individual. अपने को individual designated partner चाहिए and one of them has to be a person who is resident in India, ताकि बाहर गुल नहीं हो जाए. अदरवाइज बाहर के लॉ से उसको प्रोटेक्शन मिलता है. Resident in India means any person who has been in India for a period of 120 days. लेकिन LLP में कभी कभी ऐसा भी हो सकता है that there are body corporates who are partners, correct? So if 2 companies are partners in the LLP, that is possible. In that case, both the body corporate will have representatives who will act as designated partner, because अपने को एक at least individual partner चाहिए, correct? एक नहीं, दोनों individual partner चाहिए. So एक from one body corporate, other from another body corporate, and 2 of them individuals will become the designated partners. फाइनेंशियल ईयर अपने को पता है कि 1 अप्रैल से 31 डे ऑफ मार्च है, लेकिन अगर LLP हैज बीन इनकॉर्पोरेटेड आफ्टर 30th डे ऑफ सितंबर तो उसका फाइनेंशियल ईयर फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ LLP एक्ट will end on the next end of next financial year. So अगर 30th say आज अगर incorporate हुआ on 26 December if a LLP has been incorporated, then the financial year will not end on 31st December 2025. It will end on 31st December 2026. सेम प्रोविजन मिनिमम नंबर ऑफ पार्टनर्स का यहाँ पे है जो कंपनीज में था कि 2 पार्टनर्स होने चाहिए इफ इट फॉल्स बिलो 2 एंड 6 months तक बिजनेस कैरी ऑन किया विथ रिड्यूस कैपेसिटी, देन आफ्टर 6 months लायबिलिटी विल बिकम अनलिमिटेड. एडवांटेजेस में इजी ऑर्गेनाइज बेसिस अग्रीमेंट के बेसिस पे फॉर्म होता है, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी होता है, इजी टू फॉर्म, पार्टनर्स एंजॉय लिमिटेड लायबिलिटी, फ्लेक्सिबल कैपिटल स्ट्रक्चर एंड इजी टू dissolve. So that you can write from the features only. उसके लिए कुछ अलग ये करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Effects of LLP and effects of company, very very important. Please read and go. Then name reservation अपन ने किया है. It should not be undesirable or resembling any other name, LLP or trademark. नेम रिजर्वेशन किया और अगर किसी के साथ सेम है देन इन दैट केस 3 months के अंदर वील हैव टू चेंज द नेम. Partners mutual rights, duties, liability, everything is mentioned in your LLP agreement and it will happen as per your LLP agreement, similar to in partnership जहाँ पे partnership deed के basis पे होता है. Then second, what is this? Then yes, cessation of partnership and changes in partnership. अगर मेरा partnership में कुछ change होता है, then partner to inform LLP. So if there is a change in my address or change in my name, then I will have to inform the partner with the LLP within a period of 15 days and the LLP will inform the ROC within a period of 30 days. अगर पार्टनर है एंड पार्टनर डिसाइड्स दैट ही वांट्स टू बी आउटगोइंग पार्टनर, सेसेशन ऑफ पार्टनरशिप होता है, सीजेस टू बी अ पार्टनर, देन इन दैट केस ही विल हैव टू सेंड अ नोटिस टू द आरओसी विदिन, ही विल हैव टू सेंड अ नोटिस टू द एलएलपी within 30 days. LLP will inform ROC within 30 days. Can cease to be a partner on death, dissolution, unsound mind या declared insolvent. अगर नहीं किया तो यहाँ पे तुम लोग देख रहे हो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस हियर कंपेयर टू पार्टनरशिप. पार्टनरशिप में पार्टनर जो है वो रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ फर्म को, पार्टनरशिप फॉर्म जो है वो रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ फर्म को बता देता है. यहाँ पे क्या होता है, पार्टनर एंड एलएलपी आर सेपरेट लीगल एंटिटी, तो इसके लिए पार्टनर पहले एलएलपी को बताएगा फिर एलएलपी जाके आरओसी को बताएगा क्योंकि वो सेपरेट लीगल एंटिटी है. अगेन यहाँ पे एजेंसी है तो एलएलपी जो है लायबल है फॉर द एक्ट्स ऑफ पार्टनर इफ इट इज डन विद इन हिज अथॉरिटी एंड इन द ordinary course of business. Anything done outside the scope of authority then the LLP will not be liable. Partner के act के लिए firm liable है but the other partners are not going to be liable if you are a partner by holding out, which means that you are not a partner in the firm but you represent yourself to be a partner or knowingly allow others to represent you as a partner. Then in that case and if the third party gives any credit to the LLP, then you will be liable to the third party even though you are not a partner. And unlimited liability, I said unlimited liability partnership का सिर्फ 2 scenarios में आता है. One is when the number of members reduces below 2 and they operate business for more than 6 months, then the liability after 6 months becomes unlimited. And second is unlimited liability in case of fraud. तो ये 2 scenario में liability अपना जो है वो unlimited हो जाता है. Then you have whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is basically when LLP or the partners are involved in the fraud and I am also involved in fraud, but I give more information to the authorities saying that, okay, I'll give you more information about who all are the people who are involved in the fraud and what fraud they are doing. But in return, you will have to reduce my whatever penalty or whatever imprisonment is there that you will have to reduce. So that is called as whistleblowing. Books of accounts have to be maintained properly. cash accrual basis, double entry system of accounting के basis पे at the registered office or prescribed office, and two returns we have to file. So there in Companies Act, there are a lot of things that you will have to file. Here you will have to file only two returns. One is your statement of accounts and solvency, which has to be filed within 6 months from the end of financial year, and annual return, which has to be filed within 30 days from the end of 60 days from the end of the financial year. Sorry, not 30 days, 60 days from the end of the financial year. These are the two returns you'll have to file. Please remember the returns that are to be filed and the time limit. Annual return 60 days, statement of accounts and solvency 6 months. Okay, ये पूछ सकते हैं. Normally for final they do ask this. For inter they do ask this particular question. I've not seen it for foundation as much, but पूछ सकते हैं अगर वहाँ पे पूछते हैं तो. कन्वर्जन इनटू एलएलपी, अगर कोई पार्टनरशिप है या कंपनी है, इफ प्राइवेट कंपनी और अनलिस्टेड पब्लिक कंपनी वांट्स टू गेट कन्वर्टेड इनटू एलएलपी, देन दैट इज पॉसिबल. लिस्टेड कंपनी जो है वो एलएलपी में कन्वर्ट नहीं हो सकता है. नाउ इफ आई वांट टू गेट कन्वर्टेड, then I will have to, so if I am a partnership and getting converted into LLP, first I'll have to inform the partnership that I'm getting converted into LLP, and I will also have to inform LLP. Once I inform LLP का registrar, he will ask partnership कि इसको convert करने का है, can I convert him? He will say, okay, all compliance is done, you can convert. Then he will strike my name. इसका जो registrar है partnership का, वहां से मेरा नाम कटेगा and it will come here in the LLP का registrar, and then I will become a LLP. I will get a certificate of incorporation. As soon as I get certificate of incorporation of LLP, then in that case I will become a LLP, and all the rules and provisions pertaining to LLP shall be applicable from the date when my name is entered in the register of LLP. जब तक नहीं किया है तब तक आई एम अ पार्टनरशिप. सेम अप्लाइज फ्रॉम फॉर कंपनीज. इन कंपनीज माय नेम विल बी स्ट्रक ऑफ फ्रॉम द रजिस्टर ऑफ कंपनीज एंड पुट इन द रजिस्टर ऑफ एलएलपी. दोनों एमसीए के अंदर है बट अलग अलग रजिस्टर होता है उसका. ठीक है. सो वन इज रजिस्ट्रार एंड वन इज रजिस्टर. रजिस्ट्रार इज द पर्सन हु विल डू द थिंग. रजिस्टर इज अ बुक जिसमें वो लोग नाम चेंज करेंगे. ओके. वाइंडिंग अप ऑफ एलएलपी इधर खुद से कर सकते हैं या बाय ट्रिब्यूनल. हाउ ट्रिब्यूनल, when tribunal will be involved, again important, can be asked as a 5-mark question. LLP decides that it wants to be wound up by the tribunal if for a period of more than 6 months number of partners अपना reduce हो गया, unable to pay debts, affects the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India, default in filing statement of account, solvency, annual return. दो ही तो फॉर्म फाइल करना है, अगर तुम वो भी नहीं फाइल कर सकते तो ट्रिब्यूनल कैन ऑर्डर वाइंडिंग अप. And if tribunal is of the opinion on just and equitable ground. So winding up of LLP में ये सारे पॉइंट्स जो है ऑफ ट्रिब्यूनल वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड या आई थिंक दैट इज इट. सो या this is your partnership LLP company. When you are studying, ensure you study all three of them together to get a holistic perspective, to understand the differences, and to know that there are a lot of common points also, especially between LLP and company. There are a lot of common points. So you will get a clear picture about the common things and the differences. Any questions? Now I will take up. Then you had something, right?
Yeah, just 1 second.
1 second, I can't hear you. हाँ बोलो.
1 second.
किसमें पूछा था, 1 मिनट. हाँ,
On
इनकम
dormant
पर
company.
आस्किंग ना, डोरमेंट कंपनी का आप पूछ रहे थे ना.
Yeah.
यस. अदर्स हु डोंट हैव एनी डाउट्स, नहीं सुनने का है तो बिंदास छोड़ दो मीटिंग, नो इश्यूज. हाँ, क्या पूछ रहे थे बोलो.
So that question which you had asked in the paper,
Hmm.
he was going to acquire the machinery, right? But
Yeah.
in a dormant company, it is made for acquiring to hold assets, right? So wouldn't that be counted as not a significant payment because it is meant to
अगर
hold
वो
the asset?
होल्ड एसेट करने के लिए है तो होल्ड एसेट करने के लिए एक बार एसेट होल्ड कर रहा है, उसके बाद उसका कोई सिग्निफिकेंट अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, तो वो मैं उसको बोलूंगी कि आई विल अप्लाई फॉर इट टू बी अ डोरमेंट कंपनी. बट व्हेन आई एम परचेजिंग असेट्स, आई कैन ऑल्सो सेल द असेट. तो एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम आई एम नॉट अ डोरमेंट कंपनी. अभी एक बार मैंने अक्वायर कर लिया असेट, उसके बाद आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू हैव एनी सिग्निफिकेंट अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन. देन आई कैन से दैट सुनो, मेरे पास ये सिर्फ 4 ट्रांजैक्शंस होते, इसके अलावा मैं कोई और ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं करता हूँ, प्लीज मेक मी अ डोरमेंट कंपनी. देन आई कैन बी अ डोरमेंट कंपनी, वैसा. But if I'm
Oh,
still paying for acquiring the asset, then that is a significant accounting transaction. तो तभी मेरे को डोरमेंट कंपनी नहीं करके देंगे वो लोग.
okay.
समझा? इसके लिए वो होल्ड एसेट करने के लिए होता है डोरमेंट कंपनी, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. बट इट इज सेइंग दैट यू हैव टू अप्लाई टू रजिस्ट्रार कि मुझे डोरमेंट कंपनी बनना है. तो जब भी मैं ये 4 छोड़ के कोई भी दूसरा ट्रांजैक्शन कर रही हूँ, तो मेरे पास सिग्निफिकेंट अकाउंटिंग ट्रांजैक्शन है, देन इन दैट केस रजिस्ट्रार विल नॉट मेक मी अ डोरमेंट कंपनी, वैसा है. तो ये
Okay.
4 ट्रांजैक्शंस के अलावा कोई भी नहीं कर सकती हूँ. अगर ये 4 है तो फिर मैं अप्लाई कर सकती हूँ बोलने के लिए. So if I've acquired asset, I've paid 1 lakh and I've acquired the asset. Now next year, I'm not doing anything except for holding the asset. I'm only making fees to registrar and compliances कर रही हूँ. Then I can go and apply to ROC and say that I want to be a dormant company.
Okay.
Okay? Any
Yes.
other questions? Anything that you want me to repeat or anything you have not understood?
No, no, I understood everything.
बाकी किसी को कोई डाउट? नहीं? कैन वी एंड द क्लास? सो टुमारो अपना होगा जो फर्स्ट पार्ट है, जो ये अपना लॉ क्या है एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट सिंपल थिंग वी विल फिनिश. नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स वी विल डू एंड देन वी विल एंड द लेक्चर. इट मे नॉट गो ऑन फॉर 2 hours, तो जितना चलेगा उतना अपन लेके वी विल एंड द लेक्चर. ओके? यस. थैंक यू सो मच. बाय बाय.
Bye, Miss.
Bye, miss.
Bye.